get in here. Are you good?
Yeah, let's do it.
All righty, we're live. ThinkTank episode 2.
Let me see. How do I?
Welcome everybody, welcome. Keep rolling in.
Oh, here it goes.
Nick, you all right?
Yeah, I'm good. I am good.
Got the Kumba in the back again. Same setup, consistency.
Always got to have the Kumba. It's key.
Everybody's looking for consistency these days. Can you guys hear us all right? Boom, boy. I knew you'd be the first in here.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Late. Oh, wow. Where's Nick? You need a coffee.
Are we late? We're not late. 10:01.
We're a minute late. Hank, what's up, man? Keep rolling in. Episode 2, Think Tank. Nick got some gold mines for y'all today.
Today's going to be good. I'm actually excited, very excited. This one's going to go in deep.
All right, shall we give another minute or two for everybody to keep rolling in. Excited for this episode, excited for it. Just a quick recap as you guys roll in. Last week, talked about relationships, why they matter. Had some incredible panelists with us last week. We had Gretchen from the team and Mike, our brand director. Gretchen, experienced physiotherapist. And we just kind of talked about the idea of our relationships, why they're important, why they matter, how to build them, how to nurture them, not only in this time, but just like evergreen thoughts and ways around building relationships. And today we're a little bit lonelier. It's just me and Nick here today. We wanted to get way more strategic and tactical today. The ideas that we talked about today last week was very much to set the stage, just give context to where the conversation is going to go today. And today we're going to dive all the way in on marketing communications, but more importantly, above that, how you identify your own values and how those values inform and impact your marketing communications and decisions. So keep rolling in. I'm gonna toss up a poll in a second. Zoom is a new platform to me and Nick. We're figuring it out as we go. And I realized last week, the 2 poll questions we asked, I did not publish them. So I thought that you guys saw the stats, but you did not. So I'm gonna share it again. I'm gonna share it today. And if I mess up again, I guess I won't be here next week and the show's yours, Nick. So, but don't do that. Alrighty, just some quick housekeeping. Make sure your chat is set to all panelists and attendees. Super important. Whatever you put in the chat, everybody can see it. If it's set to all panelists and attendees, and the chat's just a segment of this Zoom, of this webinar to allow for community, build community, allow you guys to engage with one another. We'll be asking some questions in there as we roll, but questions that you have for us, make sure you use the Q&A option. We'll be fielding them as we go through this webinar, so make sure you put them in there. Again, today's going to be a lot more thought-provoking. There's going to be a lot more tactic and theory and things that you feel will apply to your practice and your business and things you can implement today. And we talked about it last week. I really think that this unprecedented stretch, the opportunity in this crisis is huge. And as much as you want to focus on how you're going to get through this in the short term, the opportunity to really sharpen your skills and your offering, and really identify who you are, what your values are, and how you want to project them to the world. Like, now's the time to really put in that work, because as we dive into today, you'll realize more and more it's a lot of work. But when you put in the long work to uncover your values, it makes marketing and communication and building your business significantly easier. Anything else to add, Nick, as I pull up this poll here?
No, I think let's get rolling. We got a lot to cover today.
We got a lot to cover. So I'm going to launch this poll again. So we got 2 questions here. Again, I want all of you to just have a better idea of who's in the room, who you're in here with. It's challenging sometimes just looking at yourself on the screen and whoever else is on the panel, and it's just the 2 of you and a deck. You feel like you're talking to yourself. So I just want all of you to have a better idea of who else is in the room. And when I end this poll, I will figure out how to publish it. So what are you consuming these days, Nick? What are you reading? What are you listening to?
First, show-wise, I've been watching way more Netflix than I usually do. Watching Scott got me on Ozark. Yeah, Ozark's been actually really exciting.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of like just regular entrepreneur life minus the drug cartel stuff, but just like the way they pivot, the way he pivots and stuff. It's really interesting. So a lot of Ozark on Netflix. On halfway through season 2 now. It's only been like 4 days since I've watched it, so it's been a lot of hours in front of the TV. Book wise, I always have trouble reading books because I'm not much of a reader for some odd reason. It's not the way I consume things that well, but I've been stuck on this Infinite Game by Simon Sinek for a long time now. I think I'm
we're diving into him later.
Yeah. Yeah, and then writing. I've been doing a lot of writing at night, which is cool. It's the way I like to just be creative and express. And then running a lot, so listening to a lot of podcasts, of course. Both like intellectual ones and not. And I think that's important. It's like sometimes you just don't feel like listening to business stuff and inspiring stuff. So I've actually been listening to a lot of basketball ones. I don't know if you know Knuckleheads and All the Smoke.
Yeah.
Those ones are always funny because you're listening to some of the stories of like Shaq and Steve Nash and all those guys. It's super funny. So that's what I've been doing. How about you?
Dive back into this one for the second time.
Yes.
This is Marketing, Seth Goen. For those who know me, Simon Sinek and Seth Goen. Those are my guys. I over-index on them on everything. They are brilliant minds to me. So I dive back into this one just for today, just to wrap my head back around thoughts that I had. And it's so interesting. Like as you evolve, you read the same content. It's like I feel like I read an entirely different book. So it's crazy. It's interesting.
I think every time you consume content that's especially very good and very rich, you take more out of it. So those guys, especially those guys like the GOATs. So
yeah, for sure. And what am I watching? So me and my family, we've started this every Friday night and Saturday night. We've taken turns in who's going to choose the next movie. We did rock, paper, scissors, and I came last, so I choose last every week. And every week it's a new theme style, like rom-com or like a movie nobody here has seen. So we watched Joy Luck Club.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That was a throwback.
Joy Luck Club. Wow.
Yeah, in the chat, share with us what you guys consuming, reading, podcasts you're listening to. Want this chat to build some community for us. A lot of like-minded people in here. So somebody might share a podcast or a movie or a book that might help somebody out. What you guys listening to? What are you reading? Shoe Dog. That one gave me chills. Almost found out too much reading that. Jeez.
Drive. Oxygen.
Yeah, keep rolling them in. All right, I'm gonna end this poll here. End this. And
listen to ThinkSpace.
You guys see the results? Can you guys see the results? Okay, cool. So a lot of physiotherapists, physical therapists in the room. A lot of chiropractors. Got some registered licensed massage therapists. Some clinic owners in the room as well. A lot of personal trainers and others always interesting. I think we dug into that last time. A lot of athletic therapists in the room and other representation, which is cool. We just love the variety and people coming from different walks of life. Everybody's going nuts. What do we got here? Canadian Investor Podcast. Super Attractor. What is that? Ariana, I'm gonna put you on the mic so you can break it down for us. Okay, cool. You guys ready to dive in? So before we jump into here, keep going, guys, keep going. Before we jump in here, just want to revisit the idea of ThinkTank and why we even built this thing to begin with. ThinkTank was really created for providing a community for all of us, therapists, clinicians, again, whatever your walk of life is, and just building a community for us to stay engaged, share our thoughts. I think enough rooms like this don't exist where we get to just kind of share our ideas and really lean on each other and get vulnerable and talk about our desires and fears. And we're all building incredible buildings. And I think it's always cool for us to share our ideas with each other. I could tell Nick's just like staring at the chat. You guys are tossing stuff out there. Keep going. So definitely for that, and it's a space to allow you guys and support you guys thinking differently, approaching ideas and concepts and things that feel very like common threads to you and your business, and just taking it from a little bit of a different angle. And another angle can really challenge, you know, your thoughts and the way you go about running your business. And that's what this is for. It's really to challenge thoughts and provoke ideas. And even when Nick and I talk about the content every 2 weeks in now, but as we talk about where we're going to go through that week, it starts stirring our own wheels. And like, how are we approaching that in the business right now? Do we pivot? Do we change things? Do we evolve things as we now put things on paper with the way that we're looking at the world now? So cool. Let's jump into it. Lots to cover. Lots to cover. I'm gonna share my screen here. Bear with me. Bear with me.
It's good variety. Very good variety in the
chat. In the chat? Cool.
Yeah.
Chat's recorded. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna dive back into it later so I could see what you guys are talking about. Okay, cool. So how your values inform your marketing communications, like me and Nick keep alluding to, there's a lot to cover today, so we're going to dive right into it. Here's our agenda for the day. I think it's always great to set the stage. So I'm going to dive into uncovering your values, kind of like a little bit of a 3-step guide. And as I alluded to earlier, uncovering your values it's a lot of work. It's very challenging, but it's very fulfilling work, because you learn more about yourself, you learn more about the market you seek to serve, and you learn more about unique ways and angles to grow your business for stability and longevity. Nick will dive all the way in business 101. A lot of my ideas and thoughts around business and around our space and our industry came from Nick. Nick's been a huge mentor to me, so a lot of the content here I've dove into with him for years now. So it's always nice to see it come back up, and again, new thoughts as I evolve as a person. We'll dig into brand versus marketing. I think that's an important distinction. I think we confuse the two very often, and Nick will dive into that. And as we uncover values, you'll realize more your brand is one thing and marketing is really how you communicate that. We'll talk about marketing messaging. We'll dive into client playbook, which we'll be going all the way in. There are a lot of strategies, a lot of tactics around how you take values, your brand, your marketing message, and how you design a playbook around that for growth. If we have time, we'll dive into tribes as well, and then we'll field some questions that all of you have. And like I said, in the Q&A, toss in questions as we go. If we see a question that's very relevant to the topic at hand, we'll definitely pull it up and we'll dissect that and unpack it as we go. Alrighty, so uncovering your values. There's a little bit of a 3-step guide. I took a lot of the work from, again, Seth Godin, Simon Sinek, Gary Vaynerchuk is definitely influential to us as well. And there's brilliant minds that have contributed to the content here. So when you dive into your first step, starting with why is important. Nick, as I share, I can't see the chat, so I'll leave it with you to cover that. So starting with why is important. I'd love for you guys to jump in the chat and just kind of talk through your why. Like, why did you decide to become a therapist or clinician in the first place? Because that core feeling, that core idea is really the beginnings of uncovering your values. Important quote here by Simon Sinek. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And what you do simply proves what you believe. I'm gonna say that again. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. I think that's incredibly important because what is easier to communicate, it's significantly clearer. But when you dive all the way into your why, it gets a little bit fuzzier. And I wish that I made a slide on this, and I was showing this to Nick earlier. I hope you guys can see this, but this is the golden circle that Simon Sinek refers to. And a lot of the folks on our Myodetox team know a lot about this because we reference this a lot. The golden circle literally looks like this. And on the outside is what? Very easy to communicate, very clear. How is a little bit fuzzier, how you communicate what you do. And then all the way in the middle is why. And that's the fuzziest. That's the hardest to uncover and find vernacular and words that describe your why, so that you can market that to your community and the people that you seek to serve. So I'll give you an example just to paint some color around this. So, Simon Sinek talks a lot about Apple, and I'll use Apple as an example because I think it resonates with a lot of us. With you guys,
Yeah, they can't really see it too well. Can you actually angle it down a little bit? There you go. That's better. You guys see that?
I apologize that it's pen on paper, but it's all I got. I forgot to put it in the deck, but it's super important. So
If you go bring it a little closer, Kev. Yeah, and then angle it maybe down just yeah, that's perfect.
All right, cool. I'm a hold steady right here. Right. So I'll use Apple as an example again, like I said, because it's a brand a lot of us it resonates well, and we know what Apple does very well. So a communication or an advertisement or a marketing message from Apple, if they went outside in, would sound a little bit like this. We make great computers. If you go into their how we do that by making them simply designed and easy to use. You want to buy one. And that's exactly how Simon Sinek breaks down the idea of going from the outside in. It's not inspiring. There's nothing about that that's inspiring, and tech guys in my world will tell me that there's nothing special really about Apple as an actual product. You strip away the brand, you just talk about the product itself. They will talk about other brands and other computer makes that are on par with them, if not better. Right. But where Apple changes things up in their messaging, they've really identified what their why is. If they start from the center and they market their message out that way, it might sound a little bit more like this. We believe in challenging the status quo, right? We believe in fostering creativity. How we do that is by creating simple to use and easily used products. You want to buy one, right? So inspiring, thought-provoking leaders will start with their why, and they'll market their message out that way. But your why, you have to be super consistent with what that is. And once you uncover that, it makes your messaging significantly easier. So as we keep it rolling here, step 2 is really looking around. And the idea of looking around is, I think sometimes we get caught up in silos and just, sticking in a room by ourselves, trying to get on a whiteboard or pen to paper, and we're trying to figure out what our values are by ourselves. But there's a lot of brands out there that you're enamored by, a lot of brands that mean a lot to you, a lot of brands that you respect. And if you look around at brands that say something to you and really evoke this emotional knee-jerk type of a reaction, there's something special about each one of those brands that speaks to you. And as simply as I did it, as I'm going to show you guys in a second, you can literally Google the core values of the brands that really resonate with you and the brands that you think about first when you're thinking about buying a computer or a phone or a pair of sneakers. Right? There's something about that brand that has always impacted you, and those core values can become your own. So little thought experiment here. I'm going to go through a couple of core values of these brands, and you guys jump in and just take a quick stab at who you think this is. So evolve immediately. Go nuts in the chat, look at the brands here, take a stab at which brand here stands behind evolve immediately. And to be honest, every single brand here probably thinks about that and it's on their radar, but they all can't embody 25 core values at the same time. They have to really stand behind 3 or 4 and go all the way in on those core values. So
pretty mixed bag right now.
What's up?
Pretty mixed.
Mixed.
Cool. Nike, Patagonia.
Cool. So what's interesting about that is the reason why I think everybody's jumping around to all of the brands on the screen here is because, again, all of them embody the idea of evolving immediately. But when sorry, I'm a little laggy here. When we dive into Nike, who's this core value actually representing as part of their core values, you think about a brand that is not afraid to fail. Nike wants, as culture shifts and a new ideology comes into play and everybody's looking at that, Nike's always willing to be first to market, the first one to either speak on it, make a statement, or build product around it. And they're willing to be vulnerable and they're willing to fail, because a lot of the times trying to be the first to market, you will be met with a lot of controversy and not everybody's going to be happy about that particular idea. But on the flip side, being first to market in a lot of ways has allowed them to become a very legendary brand. So again, you go back here, that core value can be embodied by all of them, but Nike stands behind that arguably a little bit more than everybody else here. Cause no unnecessary harm. What do you guys think? What you got for me, Nick?
Patagonia.
Patagonia.
Apple. Patagonia.
Patagonia. Cool.
Patagucci.
I could take a guess at like the 3 or 4 people that said that. But anyways, so cause no unnecessary harm is a core value of Patagonia, and I more personally recently dove into Patagonia as a brand and what they stand for. And if you know Patagonia well, you'll know that their founder is a very true, at his core, environmentalist. And this idea of cause no unnecessary harm is something that he stands behind truly. And when you think about this, people that buy what Patagonia is selling, they're probably environmentalists themselves, because they've bought into the idea of why Patagonia makes what they make and the values that they stand behind, and people get behind that, right? So I'm willing to spend more on this Patagonia product, because as an environmentalist myself and somebody who's thinking about, you know, the landscape of, you know, global warming and other concepts like that, like Patagonia speaks to that for me. Although I can buy a jacket from anybody, that core value resonates with me personally. Here's another one: valuing connection. What do you guys got? Valuing connection.
Lulu, Audible, Lulu, Supreme.
Cool.
Lulu.
So valuing connection is a core value of Lulu's. And again, like I said, a value of probably all of the brands there, but Lulu does it like no other, right? Like their ability to build connection, like us as a brand, even if I can speak to on behalf of Myodetox, like Lulu is a brand that we look up to a lot. We're enamored by their ability to create community and build connection amongst people. And it's a value that means a lot to me. And the way that they built their brand and the way they communicate what they value very much resonates in the idea of valuing connection. A couple more quickly for here. We participate only in markets we can make a significant contribution. So I'll dive right into this one without going backwards. So this one's Apple. So you think about Apple's products and like, how often has Apple strayed away from their core product? Not really. They continue evolving the same problem. They continue to create perfection, more perfection out of the products they've already made, but they don't stray too far away from what they believe their core products are and where they can make a significant impact. So lastly here, I just want to tie it back to one of our core values at Myodetox and just paint some color around how you take a core value and you build real life scenarios out of it. It's just never stop learning, which is one of our core values, right? So like over this time where we've had to shut down our clinics and we have to change our business strategy a little bit, you change your business strategy, but your core values don't change. So over the last 3 weeks, internally, we've had nonstop training sessions. We've had nonstop internal webinars, case studies, and different thought leaders on our team have led the team through training and through opportunities to educate one another, to the point where the first week that we did it was almost too much. Like it was like a fire hose of content that we had to dial it back, because we stand behind this core value so much that it was easy to decide what we're going to do with our time while we're away. We're just going to keep learning. We're just going to keep sharing ideas and knowledge with one another, because that's something that we stand behind. Cool. Step 3, ask and listen. So I'd love you guys to jump in the chat again and think about the concept of this is Seth Godin's work, your smallest viable market, and a small group of people who come to see you on a consistent basis. You probably consider them your brand evangelists or your influencers or people that really impact your business. Yes or no, do you feel like you ask those particular people questions about why they come to see you, about what they value around what you do, why they love your brand so much? Do you feel like you gather enough customer insights to use that group of 20, 30, 40, 50, 500 people to help shape what your values are? Because if your answer is no, I implore you to start taking the time to ask people that have helped you build your brand or your practice what they think, how they feel, how the experience with you in your clinic and outside of your clinic makes them feel. It's important because those insights will literally help you shape your values and potentially help your values evolve and become more direct and specific. And so I can't see it, Nick. What do they say now? Bunch of yeses, nos.
Nobody's answering.
Got it.
Let's see.
So you think about the idea of customer
Yeses.
insights, right?
Yeah, they're coming now.
Coming in now. Cool. So whether you've done it before, you haven't, like the questions that you ask are also extremely important. Again, because again, the more you ask these questions and you listen to what your brand evangelist and what your community is saying, it just makes it so much easier for you to market your message, for you to communicate better. Because I think that we spend a lot of time trying to acquire new business, trying to get new clients, new faces, when it's much easier to ask the people that are already bought into what you're doing, already value very much your services and what you provide for the community. Their answers will help you shape what your message is and how you're going to communicate with people in that exact same community. So this comes from Seth Godin's work. You're thinking about your smallest viable market and worry most about understanding your current customer and what they value. There are more people in your community just like them. So the idea here is if you better understand your customer and you ask them the right questions, they'll point you into the direction of that small cohort of people and what they value, because they probably value the exact same things that you do, right? And I think that if you really dive into your smallest viable market, basically the concept means how do you take the 30, 40 people that have really helped shape your business and use their values to market your message for you. Cool. So I'm gonna toss it over to Nick now, and this will be shared with you. The whole recording will be shared with you if you need to go back and just think about, again, those 3 steps. And like I said, now's the time to do the work to really start to uncover your values, because it'll really help your marketing message. And Nick's gonna dive into it all the way into it right now. Let me just share my screen here. It's all yours.
Right. I think there's a question as well I saw on the Q&A.
Malik asked, what type of questions can you ask them? That's an amazing question, because yeah, you can literally ask them anything. So in a little bit, Nick's actually going to dive into customer insights, and then we'll definitely get to that question. But thanks for asking that.
Okay, awesome. So thanks, Kev. You went in, man. That was like a good solid.
Yeah, I should have looked at the clock. I was rolling.
It's all good. So as Kev mentioned, I'm gonna kind of take what he kind of set up and dive into how to apply this in looking at business and see how deep we get into it. There's quite a bit of content, so I'm gonna have to obviously roll here, but everything Kev talked about was really about values and discovering your own values and ways that you can really start to look at different markets as well as your own customer base and people around you to start to craft that message. If you look at it totally zoomed out, business really, as Kev already mentioned, it's not about selling a product. It's also not about selling a service. It's not a transaction. It's not about revenues. It's not about generating profit. Zoomed out, business is really a means to deliver value. And why we talk so much about values is because at the core of what good business is really just delivering good value, whatever that means to you, whatever that means to your customer. If we break that down even further, now we're going to see, well, there's 3 basic needs of every single business. No matter how you break it down, there's number 1, identifying that value, some of the stuff Kev talked about, right? Number 2 is how do you communicate that value to the market that you want to communicate that value to? And it could be, just to a small group, it could be a big group, it could be the whole world, but figuring out how to communicate that particular value is important. And then number 3 is really just give the value or provide that value to, your customers, the market, the community, however you wish to, figure out where you want to build your business. And it's really that simple. If you can identify, communicate, and provide it to your customer, that's the core of what good business is. So we go into brand versus marketing, and brand versus marketing, these two words gets tossed around so much confusion. Like, what does brand mean? What does marketing mean? They often intersect in the sense of, like, we think brand and marketing is kind of the same thing. To be very clear, it's not the same at all. And in fact, it's completely different things. Properly defining each pillar is the first step in really understanding business. And brand, there's a lot of different definitions, but at the core, this is what brand is. It's the emotion you want your customer to feel. Customer or people, anybody really. It's the promise you make, hopefully keep, which is built on trust, right? Last week I mentioned what brand is already, which is brand is simply trust. This is the first part. This is identifying your value and in identifying what you wish to deliver to the market, because marketing is the second part of that business framework. Marketing is the delivery of that brand to the market. So that's communicating your value. So again, brand is identifying your value and marketing is communicating your value. And those are very uniquely different things. You first need to understand what your brand is. Then you can actually communicate that out to the market that you wish to communicate that to. The second part is actually a lot easier than the first part. So we go into marketing message. How do we craft this message? What are the steps? There's a question in the Q&A about what are the questions to ask. Kev gave a really good step-by-step process to really discover these values. Great starting point, but what else? Like, what else do we actually look at? There's three big questions that you always have to ask when you're trying to craft a message, a marketing message to build your business, caseload, whatever that may be. Three questions to ask is, who is blank? And this is, the company you work for, or if you have your own company, your company. So who is blank? For us, it's who is Myodetox. Second question is, who am I? Right? Third question is, who is my customer? If you can answer these three questions, this will help shape your marketing message so that it's very focused, but also impactful, right? But if you can't answer these three questions with clarity, it's difficult to expect your marketing message to have clarity. And that's why it gets very confusing from a consumer perspective when they're listening to multiple messages of these three questions, because these three questions are not always very easy to answer. So I'm gonna toss this one actually back to Kev. Kev's been on Instagram for a long time and social media. He's been doing a lot of marketing himself for a long time. So, what are some examples, Kev, as a clinician that has challenged you in kind of forming this particular message based on these three questions?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, if I were to answer the questions first, I would say, like, at a point before I was a part of Myodetox, it was just me. And as I've been mentioned in the chat here, you look at yourself as a brand or a company. At a time, it was, who is Kevin Marryshow? Now it's, who is Myodetox? Who am I? Dr. Kevin Marryshow, chiropractor. And who is my customer? Anybody looking to feel better or move better. And I think at the time, because I didn't uncover my own personal value system, even me saying that out loud, it always felt flat. Like, I felt like I was never inspiring anybody. Nobody was gonna like lock onto like what my value could provide for them, because it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, you sound like another chiropractor that's like a lot closer to me. It's just like, I'll just go to him. You know what I mean? Nothing about my message was special.
Perfect. Yep. So, like Kev mentioned, which he brought up really nicely there, is when you're answering these three questions, one of the biggest things that really matters is what we call unique value. right? If it's not unique, then really every therapy company or every therapist can message the exact same things. So what makes it actually special? And part of a good marketing message is being able to message something that's actually unique, right? And number two is when you're forming your marketing message based on these three questions, if it's for us, it's like, who is Myodetox? Well, we're a company that provides therapy. Who am I? Like in my situation, I'm a physical therapist. And who is my customer? You could say anyone that's seeking therapy. Again, those three are not very unique, number one. And number two, it's not necessarily relevant in all circumstances. And what better way to, understand that than now, which is this big pandemic that's happening? Are those three answers still relevant based on the current situation, right? And that's why a lot of companies really have trouble pivoting at this time, because those three questions aren't necessarily that relevant at this time. And trying to pivot at a time when something like that happens is very difficult. So, three better questions you can ask is really just reframing those first three questions, right? Instead of asking who your company is, who you are, and who your customer is, maybe you could just tweak those a little bit and ask, what does my company value? What do I value? And then what do my clients value? Right? And you can see those three questions. Okay, that makes more sense. There's a lot more clarity in values because it's your brand, it's you, it's what you represent. I mentioned this last time. Adversity, crisis, these kind of things, challenges, they should never change your values, right? And what they should do and what they will often do which is they'll expose your values. The answers to these questions should never change. This should be your marketing message pre-COVID. This should be your marketing message post-COVID, right? And that's why they're core values. Your offering, your service, your market, the landscape, all of that will change. Pre-COVID, post-COVID, that will all change, not your values, right? In fact, you should lean into your values even stronger than ever before, right? So again, I'll toss this back to Kev. Kev's a regional director in Toronto. How has looking at values helped you kind of shape marketing message in a better way and a more tangible way, pre-COVID, post-COVID?
Right, for sure. Yeah, I think you hit it on the head that I think pre or post COVID, the pre, during, post COVID, my core values still remain the same. The core values of Myodetox company I'm with now is the same, and I don't think that, like as you said, we just kind of leaned into it more during this time. So if I were to ask the question, what my company value, I would definitely say personal development and education. What do I value? Family and personal development for sure. I'm constantly just diving into how can I better myself, better my own personal brand, and uplift the people around me. And then what do my clients value? Education is a big one for sure. I think like unique value I found is in anybody walking away and saying, like, I feel like every time I come in for a session with you, I learn something new. And I feel like when they walk away with that, like that's a shared value that I pinned. And then the other piece would just be, I know that they value longevity. I know that they value wanting to be able to do what they're doing for as long as they possibly can. And it definitely shapes the way that I communicate with them.
Perfect. Thanks, Kev. So, again, like answering these three questions, what you're trying to find is really a shared value between the three. Then you can really create something that's, number one, unique to you. And it's the same message, crisis or not, right? Meaning it stands the test of time. It's a value, not an offering. Whether we're offering this or offering that, that doesn't matter. That could be different. Our values are the same. I would say something like, for myself, as a company, Myodetox, one of our core values is commit yourself to others. In committing yourself to others, my personal value has always been family, relationships. What do my clients value during this time, especially during the crisis? Safety, right? Safety of themselves, safety of their clients, safety of their families, safety of their professional lives, safety of, just safety in general, and probably belonging. When you're isolated at home, you want to feel like you're part of something. You want to feel like you're still connected. And the golden thread, when you answer those three questions, is really just connection, right? Connection and relationships. That's an easy marketing message to deliver to your existing clients and to the market. Much easier than the other three questions, which is therapy. I'm a physical therapist, you're a chiropractor, our customers are, maybe basketball players, maybe injured people, maybe people in pain, all those kind of things that they're not as relevant during a pandemic, right? There should always be a golden thread to all of these things. And the golden thread that we always touched on it last time, is shared value. If there is shared value between your company, yourself personally, and your clients, it makes the messaging clear, focused, and most importantly, meaningful and impactful. Pre-COVID, post-COVID, it doesn't matter. This is a slide actually from last week, but one of the most important principles for any good business, because it's really what motivates us as human beings. Values drive action. Why? Because if you can uncover these values of your clients, I put high value clients there, but just of your clients, you can understand what motivates them and why they make the decisions they actually make. If these values are aligned with your values, you can now design your message and influence behavior more powerfully than ever before, right? And, Kev already alluded to this, right? Is know your tribe, because they curate the marketing message for you, right? Kev mentioned ask and listen. Ask and listen to your customer, but to be even more strategic, ask and listen to your tribe. Your tribe we define as your high value customers, right? Somebody asked in the Q&A what questions to ask. I think you can ask them three simple questions. Number one, what do you value about, for us, it'd be, what do you value about Myodetox, the company that we work for? For you, it might be, whatever company that you work for. That's number one. Number two is, what do you value about me, right? As a person, not just as a service or a product. Like, what do you value about the time we have together? And then number three is also, what else do you value, right? And just getting into some customer insights. Customer insights doesn't have to be that complicated. I often ask my clients these exact three questions, and I just start taking notes. What do you value about Myo? What do you value about me? And then what else do you actually value? And these three things will really start to shape that marketing message for you. And then it's just this continual cycle. Your tribe being central to all three of those things that are foundational to every business, which is identify values, communicate values, and give value, right? And it all centers around your tribe, which is your high value clients. So how do we actually do this? Let's see, how much time do I have? Okay, so
You're good.
I'm good. How do we actually apply these big principles into practice, into actual business, right? This is what we call the client playbook. It's as simple as like a guide in communicating value to your clients. In its simplest form, very simple form, there's two ways for any business to build and manage for a therapist caseloads, right? Number one is client acquisition. Number two is client retention. Client acquisition is gaining new customers. Client acquisition is building loyal customers, right? And truthfully, it's really that simple. But of course, you can break it down even further. For us, we use a 3-tier model, right? In a 3-tier model, you have your first tier, which is your marketing message for client acquisition and your marketing message for client retention is uniquely different. They're two different pillars. One, you're trying to gain new customers, and one, you're trying to build loyalty. in customers, right? So that's two very separate messages, same value, different messages. You break it down to the second one, you have an inside out strategy and you have an outside in strategy. I'll go through that. Third tier is, we call it a hot tactic and a cold tactic, right? And we come up with these names ourselves. It applies to us, but I think it's very relevant to really any business out there. This is our client playbook. Each tier has a very different approach to delivering a message, even if the message is the same, right? So again, at every level, this is your client acquisition, retention. At minimum, you have two messages, one for acquiring new clients, one for building customer loyalty. If you choose to distill it further, then you have four messages. You have an inside and an outside, an inside and an outside. At most, based on this three-tier model, you have a hot, cold, all the way, right? So when you break that all down, you'll see that at most, you'll have 8 different marketing messages, but only if you choose to kind of go there. It could be as complicated or as simple as you really want it to be, right? Doesn't have to be 8 messages. It could be 2. I'll go through each of these a little bit more. Number 1, proximity matters, right? An inside-out strategy means it's local. This strategy builds what we call a stable business, and an outside-in strategy is non-local. This strategy builds an unstable business, right? And again, I'm going to toss this one back to Kev a little bit. Kev is again, director in Toronto, been a chiropractor for a long time. Can you give us an example of an inside-out strategy as well as an outside-in strategy? Talk a little bit about this, paint some color for all the attendees.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a definitely go to Instagram. I think that it's on everybody's mind. Social media is on everybody's mind, and how to leverage social media for success and the best ways to leverage it. We talked about it last week as well. The question came up, and like, in such a noisy space, is it even worth it, or how do I go about using social media, to my advantage to help me grow? So when I think about myself personally, and when I started to use Instagram as a platform, I definitely went into it thinking about it being this acquisition strategy. I'm just going to put out content. People are going to see it and they're going to come. But what it ended up evolving into was more of a retention strategy, and definitely more of this inside out, like, local strategy, because my own personal playbook was every new client that I saw, they wouldn't walk out the door without me sharing my Instagram handle with them. For me personally, knowing that I value connection, I value education and development, and that shared value for them as well is they're going to always want to see the content I'm putting out, and they trust me. I'm a trusted source to them. But what that evolved into was my content started to be created for my community and the people that I serve. It just happened to be also seen by other people. That grew, but that wasn't the intention of it. The intention was an inside out local strategy for the people that I personally serve, knowing that they're going to be brand evangelists for me. When the opposite would have been, I just put up a page, people come, I have 100 followers, but if less than 1% of those followers actually live in my community, and my sole purpose of using the platform is to build my business, then it's not the best strategy.
Awesome. Perfect. So yeah, I mean, just what Kev's talking about is proximity and locale matters, and it matters a lot, right? And I alluded to this last week when we talked about the network effect, which I'll, if we have time, we'll go into it in more detail. The reason it's important is you're building a network effect, which is the most powerful effect in business. The ability to have connection with multiple people within a community is what we call an inside-out strategy. So focusing your attention on building, 10 clients within a local community is going to be much more stable and impactful than 10 clients that, for instance, weren't necessarily in that community. Maybe they reached out through Instagram, or maybe they reached out through a different channel, because they have zero connections with each other, or the chances of them having those connections are very low, right? So the whole point of, doing it with some strategy or thought process behind marketing a message is that you want to increase your chances of success. And there's clear indicators of success based on proximity. And it's something that we've known for a very long time, but because there's been new channels to market, more and more channels out there now than ever before, it makes it confusing for everyone to know, like, where am I supposed to go? Am I supposed to go on Instagram? Am I supposed to? There's no yes or no answer. It's just let's talk about what the purpose is behind going on Instagram or going on all these other channels, right? The heat score is the third tier, right? You have a hot tactic, cold tactic. A hot tactic is what we call a direct touch point. Personalized, right? Personalized, crafted for an individual. A good example of this would be, say, a phone call to a client. I know everyone's doing virtual sessions right now, so a virtual session to a client, that's what we call a hot tactic, because it's personalized. It's crafted for an individual. A cold tactic is indirect. It's generalized, right? And a generalized tactic would be, say, a postcard, maybe a mass email through MailChimp. You can even say an Instagram post would be, you're not speaking to an individual, you are now speaking to a larger audience, which potentially a much bigger audience, right? So toss it back to Kev again. Hot tactic, cold tactic. What do you think?
So again, back to Instagram. I think it's a hot topic. So a hot tactic for me personally is, as I mentioned earlier, this is how I use Instagram. This was my thinking and my purpose behind using the platform. My hot tactics would always be engaging with people that I personally work with and encouraging them on the platform. So for example, a client of mine, we've been working on his running mechanics, dealing with knee pain, and then he posts a video up of him running and reaching a milestone. Of course I'm going to comment on that. Of course I'm going to communicate with him through the platform. Like in the context of what we're talking about right now, it is marketing, but I think marketing gets this like negative connotation. Like, not all marketing is a negative thing. You're not always selling a product. Marketing is just connecting with people. If you got to say communication in your head or connection, and that helps you reframe marketing in a way that's more digestible, then do that. But I'm going to do that. I'm going to communicate through that platform, because the cold tactic alternative would be me waiting for my team or my clinic to send out a message to all the runners in our group on my behalf, when I already have a personal connection with that client around running.
Perfect. Great example. Yeah, I mean, again, as Kev mentioned, in the perfect world, you can have a direct, personalized touch point with every single client that you've ever seen, right? That would be a very strong way to market any sort of message that you're trying to market. And we always call the lazy way is like a mass email. Let's just throw it on MailChimp and just blast it out to everybody. That's as cold as it gets, right? It's generalized. Nobody actually wants to read that stuff. It goes into the inbox. Every company throws out these messages. It's just like, what was the purpose of that, right? And there is still some value to that, but the value is potentially significantly less, right? So the 3 tiers, these are the general rules. If you forget everything in today's webinar, I would say try not to forget this. This one's very, very important. Very important. Because if you follow these rules, it will maximize your return and minimize your resources, right? Your end goal is being able to build a strong network effect, which is a stable, self-sustaining business. It means focus on retention, inside-out strategies, and hot tactics, right? Priority number 1 is really internal marketing, a retention strategy to generate the highest valued acquisition, which is a direct referral. Building customer loyalty is the number one way to acquire a client, acquire a high value client. Priority number two is inside out over outside in, which means external marketing, but to your hyper local community, right? An acquisition strategy to target a high value market, right? Somebody that works in the neighborhood or lives in the neighborhood is a much higher potential client than somebody that doesn't, right? And then priority number three is hot over cold. Personalize all of your touch points if you can, right? Which now makes you think about all those times that you treated clients, had engagement with clients. Did you ask them a question that was personal, that maybe was outside of just their injury, or just ask them as a human being, like, things that are relevant to their life, not just what's in front of you. And did you write that down? Did you use those little small strategies in their chart note, all those kind of things that one day you might thank them for being a great connection for you. And bringing up those little touch points are very key in developing those relationships, because they do matter, because people value it, right? So these are the general rules. This is like the secret formula. And the secret formula is retention strategies to improve acquisition, and acquisition strategies to improve retention. And this sounds redundant and sounds like a cycle, but really that's how you build a very stable caseload and a self-sustaining caseload in a business that will continue to grow itself. What that means in this formula is really about high value. That's all it is, right? The first sentence: by building your relationship with your existing clients, you develop shared value. And over time, these values become high value. This in itself will start to generate direct referrals, right? So it's really an acquisition strategy through retaining your clients and building customer loyalty. The second sentence there is, if you can now market these shared values of your high value clients, you now target high value markets, thus improving retention by, again, acquiring high value clients to start with. So their ability to be retained and become a loyal customer to you is significantly higher, because they are the ones that share the exact same values as you and your company, right? So this is actually the secret to building a very strong business and caseload. I think it's time, man.
Yeah, we have to cut it there. Like we said, y'all, it's a lot of content, a lot of things to cover. Cool. We got a poll for you guys before we close it up here. Nick, thank you so much for the insight. Like we tried to say at the front end, man, we can just go so deep into the content.
So you guys want us to keep going? Should we keep going?
Okay, cool. There, somebody.
I don't know. Like, ask. Do you guys want 10 more minutes or not?
Keep rolling.
I can keep going. It doesn't matter.
Keep rolling.
We have the content. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
2 hours.
You guys find this stuff useful? Go for it.
Cool. Yeah, keep it rolling. Keep it rolling.
All right. This is 10 minutes. I'll be quick.
10 more.
This will tie it together. This is important. So all of that stuff, all the strategies, all the tactics, all that kind of stuff, really go back to this, your tribes, right? And we talked about this last time. How do we actually define your tribes? Who are they? Why are they so important? Again, interesting time, right? Very interesting time. And while we really shouldn't be opportunistic at a time when, the world is in need, I think it's just important to recognize the unique nature of human behaviors during a crisis. It's less so trying to be opportunistic as just understanding how humans interact with things like a crisis. Collectively, everyone craves safety, right? it's been the case for since humans were ever, we ever started. Safety of our lives, safety of our family lives, safety of our professional lives. These are all things that right now are very important for every human being on this planet. Not a new value at all. It's been there forever, right? The landscape just changed. We have a pandemic. We have the COVID-19 crisis. Values don't change. They just get exposed, right? This happens. The safety value gets significantly amplified, right? Now we're protecting, very protective, understandably. It's something that we've always valued. But in a less threatening state, it's not something that's necessarily as exposed as in a very threatening state, right? So the opportunity lies in providing these values to our existing tribes. And why we keep mentioning tribes is because tribes, the trust level is high and the threat levels are low, right? In providing this value to your tribes, you will now build your brand equity, which is what we talked about in the beginning. It will build emotional equity, brand equity, the things that you really want to be able to develop those strong connections with your clients. So who exactly is your tribe? This is the approach, right? Know your 20, grow your 20. What does this actually mean? It means that approximately 20% of your existing clients are part of your tribe. That you should spend your time knowing what they value and have the intention to grow your 20% over time, right? This is how you build your tribe over time. So remember, this group is your tribe, meaning they are already ambassadors of you and what you provide in terms of the value. They already value you. They are the clients that keep coming back. They're the clients that you connect with on every single level. Those clients that you guys share interests, share hobbies, share laughs, share jokes. You tell a joke, they laugh. They tell a joke, you laugh. Some don't. These are the ones that do. They probably live close by. Ultimately, they probably tell all their family and friends to come see you if the opportunity came up. So why 20? Why 20%, not 30%, 40%, 50%? It really goes back to a rule that we didn't come up with. This is the 80-20 rule, a rule that we use a lot. I use a lot in my personal life. It's also known as the Pareto principle. Basically states that 80% of the effects comes from 20% of the causes, right? In other words, 20% of your existing clients contribute to 80% of your caseload. It's kind of mind-boggling when you think about that. That 20% of your existing clients contribute to 80% of your caseload, whether it's through them getting a lot of sessions themselves or some sort of a referral or direct referral or indirect referral. It very likely came through that tribe. So again, it's more of a principle, less of a rule. It doesn't mean like exactly 20%. It just means that the majority of big sets of data is not equally distributed. That there's a small proportion that contribute to the majority of the effects, right? So who is your 20? These are your ambassadors. These are what we call high-value clients. How you wish to define your high-value clients depends, right? There's so many different ways to define high value. You can define it by number of sessions. You can define it by referrals. You can define it by hobbies, shared interests, demographics, et cetera, et cetera. But really what it comes down to is just shared values, right? Your high value clients share the exact same values as you, right? And over time, as you're a clinician that has worked for a long time, you will start to have a larger tribe, people that really connect well with you, right? Because you guys can, talk about the same things together. You guys can share jokes together, share interests together, talk about, your kids together, talk, things like that. It's really just about shared values, because they are your number one marketers. The markets that they speak to, which are basically their family, friends, or you can call it their tribe, are all ready to buy because it comes from them, not from you, right? And this is the really big thing that people have to really understand when you're trying to build a network effect, right? That you have your tribe, and in that they have their tribe, and their tribe has their tribe. That's how a network effect works, right? And if you look at tribe to tribe to tribe to tribe, this is basically just tribe to tribe marketing, right? Always coming from a high trusted source and low levels of threat, right? Again, I'll toss it back to Kev quickly. How would you define your 20?
Yeah, I mean, if I put my clinician therapist cap on, I usually go back to three things. One being influence, and influence can be defined in so many different ways. You have social capital, you have decision maker in like a very local business that's highly regarded. But for me personally, again, because like social online presence is important to me, social capital and influence is important. The next piece would definitely be, as you mentioned a bunch of times, is referrals. Like I dissect my own network effect that's happening, and I want to know like who's at the top of this pyramid, like who's telling this story so consistently that I can draw 30 people back to this one person. That person is definitely in my 20. And then the third one is kind of like, a lot of you out there must have those clients who they just get you. Like they just get your brand and what you're building and whatever content you put out and whatever outreach events you do, they're just there. They just show up all the time. They're always there for a high five and just like really commenting on yo, Nick, you're doing incredible work and I really appreciate what you put on for the community. Those are kind of like the three buckets.
Awesome. Yeah, and again, like you can define your high value whatever way you want to define your high value, right? I know I've always connected well with basketball players just because I you can talk about basketball, you can really understand, when they're coming in with an issue, whether it's like a knee problem or a shoulder problem, and you could talk about the jump shot and talk, like you could start to trash talk a little bit. Maybe you've played them before, talk about the NBA, like things like that always build a high level of trust and a low level of threat no matter what, right? It's less so that I'm an expert in basketball injuries. I'm not, but I play the game. So and they get that, as opposed to, if somebody came in that was like a tennis player. I don't play tennis, right? All right. As much as I can understand a knee problem or a shoulder problem, I just don't understand the movements that well because I don't actually play. I can try to break it down because I understand mechanics, I understand movement in general, but it's not going to resonate with people if we don't actually connect on that same level, right? So the high value could be really how you wish to define it. Tribe to tribe is basically this: high levels of trust, low levels of threat. Again, a very important slide that you have to understand. If you're marketing a message, it has to fall under these two categories: high levels of trust, low levels of threat, right? And if it's reversed, low levels of trust, high levels of threat, you can understand why that's not going to sit very well. And in a situation now with COVID coming on, this is how companies and people should really look at: is the message I'm putting out there right now a high level of trust, coming from a high level of trust and a low level of threat? Or am I just kind of playing in the middle? Because people are way more sensitive than they ever been to these kind of things, right? And it's maybe something that worked pre-COVID, it's not really going to work that well now, right? Which means you have to just go back to what those shared values actually are. You know what I mean? So this is just a summary slide. This effectively is called values-based marketing, right? That's what this is. You're identifying shared values. You're communicating these shared values, and you're providing these shared values, right? It's the golden thread. It's the most effective way for you to drive action, right? And this isn't because of COVID again. This is pre-COVID, post-COVID, next COVID thing that happens. It doesn't matter. Shared value is what you should always be marketing no matter what, right? Whether you're a clinic owner trying to motivate your team, clinic owner trying to build a business, or even a clinician trying to build your caseload or your personal brand. It's all the same principles. It doesn't really matter, right? Which is focus on the 20% and find out what they value, right? Focus on your 20% and find out what they value so that you can actually communicate that. And then ask yourself, how do I get my ambassadors, this is your tribe, to organically market for me, right? And it's a tough question, right? But it's something I always leave with people just to think about, right? You can't just like ask, hey, can you go tell a friend about me? That's not really organic, is it? Now you're asking for something in return. Again, remember, give first. Not just give first, just give, right? Give first means you have some sort of a intention for a return at some point. You know, I always recommend people just give, right? Over time, they will organically market for you anyways. You have to trust the system. You have to trust that this is how humans' behaviors work, right? It's not, I give and maybe one day they'll give me back something. Don't even worry about that. Just simply give, right? This is actually the last slide. We've already shown this last time, but maybe this has a little bit more relevance to people now. If you do it all right, everything we talked about today, which was a lot, we can dive into it deeper in another episode if you guys want, but it was a lot of content. If you do all of that stuff, you will build a network effect, which is the most powerful effect in marketing and business. When you establish this type of network effect, the growth becomes exponential, not linear. Every single connection from person to person is more trust and less threat, right? And something very important to keep in mind. That's what you want, right? And allow the people that already are your ambassadors to market for you by giving them shared value. And that's it. That's all I got today.
Thanks for that, bro. Like we said, we kicked it off mentioning it was going to be deep, and it was definitely super deep. Real quick, I'm going to put up this poll for everybody here. We want to get a better sense of what you find challenging, or where you find bottlenecks in your business or as you're building your practice right now. So it'll really help us shape the content and how we're building out this and how ThinkTank continues to evolve. So I'm gonna put this up right here. Nick, as this is up, you mind jumping on this question? So Alvin had a question. How do you keep up with your clients' engagement? And I can see where he's coming from. You have this super huge laundry list of clients. Like, how do you keep them all engaged during this time and pre and post?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to kind of always know who your 20 is. So it's like, know your 20, grow your 20. I personally keep a list of people that are my clients at Myo. But when we talk about tribes, it's important to remember tribes are not just your clients, right? Tribes are your family, your friends, people that are ambassadors of you, right? I keep close connections with my own family because I know they're going to be ambassadors of me. They have networks just like a client has a network, right? A tribe is not just your clients. A tribe is everyone that has your best interest, just like you have their best interest in mind, right? Everyone that has shared value with you that you resonate with, right? So I think it's very important to just make sure you always know who that 20 is, right? What that means is if I have 100 clients, approximately 20 are part of my tribe, right? I'm constantly engaging with those people, pre-COVID, post-COVID. It's not post-COVID I'm going to engage with them more, not really, but I'm going to check in with them. But I checked in with them even before the COVID thing ever happened, right? And checking in doesn't mean like, hey, how's it going? Like, do you need a session? It's more so like, hey, how's it going? Like, just, did you watch the game the other day? Type of thing. I just connect with my people on a human level, right? Because I value those connections. I don't value the transaction of them wanting to come see me as a therapist or come to Myo as a client, I value the relationship because we have shared values, right? It's an important relationship for me, right? So again, it's important to know this is not transactional. It's not like a list of people that once a month you're gonna talk to because you potentially want them to come back in as a client or come in for more sessions. That's not the point. The point is you consider them your tribe as clients, family, friends, your networks, your communities, people you hang out with, people you run with. For me, it's like basketball guys. That's all it really is, right?
Cool. Alvin, I hope that answered your question. Aaron, I saw you popped in a question right there. I'm actually gonna take that with me. I'm gonna shoot you off an email, make sure that gets answered, just so we could wrap up as close to on time as possible. Thank you all again for tuning into episode 2 of Think Tank. Next week, we're actually gonna be diving into Tribe actually, and talking more about building your community and how your community can help build your business for you. We'll bring on a guest or two onto that one. It's kind of lonely and it's just me and you, Nick. So we'll bring some people into that, just some thought leaders in the space around building community, because again, now you understand your values and how you market your message. You take those two things and you start to build a community that will help your business and your practice grow. And it's literally the next step. So that's what we'll be jumping into next week. You all will get an email after this, probably by end of day tomorrow, with a recording of this. So you can always revert back and share that with anybody in your circle, in your world you think would find this helpful. If you have any questions, feedbacks, comment on anything we're building here, again, we want to continue to make sure ThinkTank evolves. Shoot it off to ThinkTank@myodetox.com. That link will be in the email as well. I'll make sure to shoot off the link to all of you for the Simon Sinek TED Talk, so you guys can dig a little bit deeper into the concepts of why and any other appropriate links that came up in this talk. I got to go back to the recording and make sure that we cover it all. Appreciate you all. Anything else, Nick?
No, that's it. I hope you guys found that content useful. Again, me and Kev are just kind of, going at it week to week here and trying to figure out what you guys want and what you guys would value. And, this poll is going to be very interesting for us to dig deeper and try to figure out, create content that is relevant to you guys. So it was a lot, I know, this session for sure. I hope you guys, obviously take some gems out of it and, apply it to your own practice or apply it to your own life. But anytime you guys have any questions, please, ask us, email us. We could dive deeper with you guys individually if you guys need. Always open to supporting you guys.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is at the end of the day, we would have been just talking about this stuff anyways. So it really doesn't change. We'd be just here plotting, scheming, uncovering more about our values and how we communicate them. So we're just excited that y'all can be here to join us and just open up the conversation again to the community. Because like I said, we'd be here on the Zoom call. Actually, we'd have done a Google Hangout and we just been talking about it anyways. So
yeah. And
cool.
Thanks for the extra time as well.
Of course. Yeah, I appreciate it. We went way over time here. We will see you all next week for episode 3. Appreciate your presence.
See you guys.
Later.